We're live.
Okay, we're back after another short break and hopefully the last first one anyway. So we're continuing.
That's good. John Ray, Office of Legislative Counsel. We left off at the bottom of page 80. I was last describing section 77 where there is no difference. This is the exempting school construction expenditures from the supplemental spending cap. No change there. The Senate added at the bottom of page 80 the new section 77A. You'll recall that the House had included language to update the ballots for supplemental district spending to address some of the sequencing of bond authorization, then a one-time authorization for supplemental district spending, getting a separate ballot for regular supplemental district spending, to distinguish between school construction expenditures and other kinds of expenditures covered through supplemental district spending. The update that the Senate made is to amend the section of statute that actually spells out some of the ballot language and process related to authorizing that bond. So separate from supplemental district spending itself, this is that bond authorization, and it ties back to the sequencing problem we were talking about that's resolved in the aid application section. So what you'll see throughout are a couple of strike-throughs and updates to AOE, cross-references, some cleanup changes to reflect the new state aid program. And then the big changes really begin bottom of page 81 and leading on to page 82. There's a disclaimer that goes out with these ballots. Currently, it talks about state funds not being available, and that the district would be on the hook if that aid is not available. At the top of page 82, you see new language added to that. It's going to be in bold text on the ballot. And it says funds to cover annual debt service costs on the bond shall be raised through the supplemental district spending tax, and any bonded indebtedness incurred for school construction shall constitute an ongoing obligation not subject to annual authorization of supplemental district spending. So it's trying to draw out the interesting sequencing for doing school construction once you're in a world where you need to do supplemental district spending. It additionally provides at the bottom of page 82, separate from the ballot itself, but as part of an informational hearing, language estimating different possible supplemental district spending tax rates, making a number of assumptions based on different aid scenarios. And so the idea is that information is being made available to voters at the time that they authorize the bond, which again is not the time that they authorize SDS. So this is when they're voting on the full, they would be voting on the full authorization, not knowing what state aid is coming. And it's letting them know you might receive different kinds of aid, and this is conceivably how it might affect your supplemental district spending tax rates. But as you see at the top of page 83, you would also clarify to the voters that these are estimates. It is based on assumptions, and future rates would vary based on current conditions at that time. But it's slightly different than the current structure where it's almost, you can't really estimate what future tax rates would be under the current structure. Section 78 is the supplemental district spending ballot language that I was just talking about. And I would say that the way to explain the differences between the chambers, really the core is the same. It's trying to create two different ballots, one for regular SDS and one for school construction. And the Senate just kind of simplified the language, and that's what you see at the bottom of page 84. The kick-in for your regular vote is if the board determines that the district should raise funds to cover expenditures other than annual debt service obligations on outstanding capital indebtedness, then this ballot. And then it says what the ballot is. And one thing that it does on page 85 is you see that it clarifies to voters that even if they don't authorize supplemental district spending in that year, they would still be subject to whatever supplemental district spending tax rate is required to support any ongoing annual debt service costs.
It continues to keep the sort of two separate.
Exactly. And that's what you see, a different lead in. It's the same concept. It spells out some of the timing for the one-time authorization. It says if the board receives a determination of aid and prior to issuing any bonds for school construction, so before incurring that actual bonded indebtedness, present for a one-time authorization SDS to cover those annual debt service costs. And similarly on 86, it does kind of the converse of what we just described. It says that if you separately approve any SDS, note that the rate you receive in that ballot will be the total rate required to cover that vote plus any annual debt service costs. So it's making clear to the voters that they're kind of a special kind of supplemental district spending. Section 79, we are now at the full construction sections, and we're jumping to quite simple to explain sections related to foundation formula transition measures and reports There's just a conforming change in section 79 to repeal section 41 from Act 73. This was the ballot language for supplemental spending. There are now sufficient changes in the Senate proposal that you need to repeal and replace. That's what I put down there, but that language does preserve the Act 73 language. It just updates with the additional pieces we just talked about. The remaining sections I'll speak to, sections 80 through 82, I think are all transitionary measures. And the blue is off. These are continually effective for FY30, which is what the Senate proposed. So it's a 1-year acceleration, and that's what you see reflected in the highlighted in each of fiscal years 2030 through et cetera. It's your EOP transitions, it's your SDS cap transition, your homestead property tax rate transition. I can always,
Except for the foundation formula goes into effect in 2029 in the Senate version. And
exactly.
so bottom of page 87 and section 81, it still says 30.
The blue is off, and I can update these.
Oh, you just, is that?
It's okay. Yeah, no, you're
Sorry.
good. You're good. I mean, it's nice to clarify. I can update those to.
Okay, sorry about that.
So that's your transition measure. No substantive change that are exactly as in Act 73. It's exactly the same substantively across both chambers, just accelerating by a year. Similar concept for the homestead property tax rate transition report. While you see this underlined, this is technically the same substantive language as is in Act 73. It's just pulled out into a new section to be separate from the transitionary measures. And that report of the homestead property tax rate transition would now come December 15th, 2027 in the Senate proposal. Similarly, in section 84 and on page 89, the homestead exemption structure report would come December 15th, 2027. Those are your updates to timing. In all cases, just accelerating by a year. Section 85 does have one substantive tweak. These are the changes to membership and directives to the Ed Fund Advisory Committee and the changes on page 91. It adds as a new directive for the committee to annually recommend subdivision 6, the appropriations required to fully fund each school district's educational opportunity payment under the foundation formula for the current and upcoming fiscal year. This is essentially a check to see has the General Assembly followed the math of the statute. And so you would just multiply the most up-to-date student counts by that base amount, and you could check the work of the legislature and say, you fully funded the foundation formula as contemplated in statute, or alternatively, if you didn't, it would say you didn't. And then you see that update to timing, accelerating the first meeting by 1 year. This comes a little bit after the foundation formula is kicked into effect. So I think from, so there's not aids in the transition to the foundation formula. It's something that comes in afterward for kind of technical assistance. On 92, we have the effective dates, and these have been spoken to, I think, throughout the presentation, but the accelerated effective dates, it really touches the tax policy pieces outside of regional assessment districts. So property tax classifications, related provisions, and then it touches the foundation formula and the homestead exemption, all accelerated by a year from the proposal, with FY30, July 1, 2029 as the big date.
Asked you about the date change yet?
The date change, all the date changes, date changes for transition.
I don't know if we want to do that right now or not, did we?
We have not, we've
Okay.
discussed the big date change.
Okay, do you want me to walk through it?
Yeah, sure.
Is that
Sorry,
is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as I said in the floor and on the floor, I mean, and as most people know, the date for the start of the foundation formula, the governor has, in our negotiations with the governor related to the forced mergers situation and the contingencies, the governor wanted to not have voluntary mergers and also wanted to remove all the contingencies. That was not a feasible option for the legislature. The contingencies, as you all well know, are very important to many people in both caucuses and both houses.
I think it's important to Vermonters.
And yes, Vermonters. And similarly with not forcing mergers, we heard that loud and clear through lots of testimony in the education committees, but also the redistricting task force and throughout our conversations with constituents. So pushing back on those requests, what the governor requested was to speed up the timeline for the transition to the foundation formula so that it would go into effect on July 1st of 2029, which is what it originally was in Act 73, or what is in Act 73 is starting that foundation formula. And on July of 29, doing so means that we needed to change the timeline for the merger committee process and all of the associated things, and also the vote on when communities would vote on their proposed mergers. So this timeline, which is the combined timeline, I think we can look at this. So in order to make sure that, so the vote in the House version of the bill would have taken place on November of 2028, which is the presidential election and general election for 2028. In order to make sure that we still had a election date that would have maximum voter turnout, but also be able to accommodate this change in the foundation formula effective date, we moved the vote to town meeting day of March 2028. So any of the proposed mergers would have to have a vote on that day, so that everybody in the state whose communities have recommended merging would be voting on that same day. Ballots would be mailed, so it would be universal mail-in ballots, and it would be a local election, which is when we're used to voting on school issues anyway, but it also would be a presidential primary election. So there would be a lot of incentive for people to go out and vote from, all across the voting spectrum. So that changes the timeline to make sure that, and this is a really detailed timeline, so passage of the bill, hopefully soon. And then the CISAs become effective with appointments made within 30 days and the first meeting held in 45 days, starting in July. So there's CISA work over the summer. Starting on September 1st, the facilitators for the work of the merger committees would have to be hired by the one existing CISA, so that they would be sort of getting that up and running. School districts would identify members to participate on the merger committees, and the people would be assigned to merger committees, and the first merger committees would be held by October 15th of this fall. And then just talking about the merger stuff, they would have until just September 1st of 2027 to submit their final reports to the Agency of Education with their recommendations. In between that October 15th of 26 and the September 1st of 27, there would be a lot of work happening. There would be various reports, and I can go into more detail if you want, but various reports. There would be work being done by the tax department, of course, as we're moving toward that. Work being done on the district quality standards and rules, and the grand list, and merger committee status reports. And of course, the merger committees themselves would be doing a lot of community meetings and analysis and trying to figure out what their path forward is. Of course, if somebody wants to come in early with their merger study report, they can come in as early as possible, as early as they're ready. And that is hopefully what will happen, so that there's not too much of a crunch. But then the merger reports are due. They're first reviewed by the Secretary of Education. She would have 30 days to review them. And if she doesn't make a recommendation, they still would go to the State Board of Education, so that there wouldn't be a holdup. Also, local school boards would also review them at that time. And they have, I think, 60 days to review them. And then by December 15th of 2027, the State Board of Education would have to issue its final findings and approval of the new merger proposals as well as the articles of agreement, because the proposal comes with an articles of agreement and who are advisory and necessary districts in the whole merger. And in the case of the districts that have the 4 CTE districts that are independent, a recommendation on what to do with the CTE district as well. So it's a pretty tight timeline to get that all done in the fall. We're going to have 2 really, really busy falls, let's just say, on this work. And then once that's all approved, the ballots would need to be printed and gotten ready to mail. And the warnings for the election dates, the voting dates, I believe it's March 7th of 2020. Yes, March 7th of 2028 is when the vote would take place. After the vote, there would be the normal 30-day, I think it's 30 days where somebody could petition for a revote, just like any other election. On March 7th, the new school board members would also be hired. So after that, school board members would start to get their new district up and running while the existing school boards also are present and working on running the existing school districts. So there would be this year of overlap with multiple boards, just like what happened in Act 46. This is not a new process. I want to reiterate, this is something that school boards and local communities have gone through before, and it's using the existing statutory process for merging school districts. On July 1st of 2029, if all the contingencies have been met, as we discussed earlier, we've passed legislation that meets the contingencies, and we are clear of the intent, or we being whoever is here in this building, then the foundation formula would go into effect.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you talk through so between when the new school board is formed, and the new superintendent is hired, how much time do they have to develop the budget for the new foundation?
So
Is it like a year?
Yeah.
So yes, they would have the next year. So the budget for FY for that current year would already be in place. So for FY 29 would already be in place, and then they would have a whole year to develop the budget, hire a superintendent. Sorry, I sort of skipped. But yeah, hire a superintendent and work through the new budget. So we would have to have the foundation formula set so they know what they're budgeting to. Yep. By July, essentially by July 1st of 28, we would need to know what the foundation formula is going to be so that districts can use it to make their FY 30 budgets. And also that we would also need to know the tax stuff so that we can anticipate the tax rates and everything as well. So that's all embedded in the timeline. And then there's some regional assessment district stuff that happens after, as Kirby noted. That's always been sort of like the last thing that happens. So it is tight, but there is still there's still a full budget cycle between when the votes happen and the new formula goes into effect and the new budgets happen. Yeah.
And by the way, there's a mistake on this because under July 129, the Senate does not have prohibition of fees or tuition. So the Senate version has an X on that.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
So that, and then this is the shorter version that just has the school stuff on it, not all the tax stuff. But will be a lot of work for local communities and new school boards and the tax department for that matter. But it seems to be feasible to make happen. And I think our communities, they wanted to have voluntary mergers. So hopefully they will be up for the process of working toward those possibilities.
Thanks. One of the areas, it's just in the more detailed one,
Mm-hmm.
and this is something we may just need to make more explicit in the language. It's sort of reads like the state board has from December 1st to December 15th.
Yeah.
I think we just need to make clear that the reports could go to both parties. And then, of course, the secretary isn't going to just sit on all of them until December 1st.
Yeah, I think that is a good point, that we
Make that-
want to give them more than 2 weeks to do their work.
Well, they can just become, because the reports are due September 1st.
Yes.
So one would hope that they'd be sort of reviewed by the secretary in batches and they can go to the state.
Yeah, the secretary of the state board and local school boards should be all reviewing them simultaneously,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, and we can clarify that.
Do that, yeah. Great. Thank you. Emily just stepped out for a very quick moment. Yeah. I just would like to echo what Emily said earlier, in some appreciation for a lot of the work you've done. She noted some areas in school construction. I look at things like a process for adjusting CISA boundaries, which we did not have included. And then there are some other smaller areas, but just sort of like picked up on this, picked up on that, found solutions for it, and definitely appreciate that. I think we've got a few things to work through, but as we were flipping through the pages, there's a lot more commonality here than there is difference. So probably we're ready to, at some point, dive in. I don't know if we sort of caucus first at this point. I'm playing it by ear. But anyway, we can sort of go back and revisit some of the things as well, or look at things that were.
I think the big,
get close.
in some ways, the big move on our part was to adopt your framework.
Yeah.
Because it was very different than ours. Well, not very different, but different. And for our committee, for the ed committee to move to CISAs was a kind of a major shift. We moved in that direction and be interested.
Appreciate that. And again, so much of this, there's a lot just of things that were caught that are great, and appreciate that as well. Without the visual here, and I'll get some copies of the map I had made for us tomorrow. Like just to sort of talk over some of the differences in those areas. Just to get some whys. Anyway, we wrapped up. I was expressing appreciation for many of the smaller parts that had been picked up on.
Yeah, a lot of this is like some of our, like, the best work that can happen between two chambers in terms of, you guys added a lot of polish.
Is there an area that you all or we all would like to sort of address first, or talk about, or maybe we need to do a little caucus, just sort of say, hey, let's sort of check off this, and this, the things that we find we can agree on.
Yeah, I think that might be helpful do we want to come back together tonight?
Yeah, if it's, I don't know what our.
I mean, were there areas that you had mentioned areas that you had questions of? Do you want to do those now, or?
Yes, I mean, I sort of
I
sort of flagged them as they came along.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you have to go to the floor about 5.
Yeah, I'll get a text at some point. I'm not sure when that's going to be. There's a long list of bills in front of us. So from a timing point of view, just come back at 6. When we say 5:30, it's only 4:45 now.
Are we will you have the maps to look at then?
Oh, I'll try to get those. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be very.
We don't have a print shop, I don't think, at this point.
But could I just make copies in the large
I
file?
don't know if you can make it that big.
I did, that's where I made it.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I
Okay.
got this one from.
Has printer.
Okay, so,
All right.
Okay.
I just
will-
did this in the ledge lounge earlier tonight.
I will send those to you to have printed.
Okay, cool. So what did we just?
5:30?
5:30?
5:30?
5:30?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll come back here at 5:30.
And I will say, for the record, I'm covered on childcare this week, so. My wife's leaving the state with the kids, so I'm all set.
Coming back?
Hopefully.
TBD.
Maybe that's not the
All right.
Okay, so in this room at 5:30.
Gonna